according to our research, I mean, we've seen genetic changes, we've seen immune response changes, we've seen neurotransmitters changes, we've seen telomere changes, we've seen changes in brain coherence, heart coherence, we've seen changes in people's energy, the energy of the room. We've measured all of that. And I started thinking, okay, we teach people how to create brain and heart coherence, and it has biological effects. In 4 days, we were able to produce some of those significant changes. When you get something, you give thanks. The signature means it's already happened emotionally. So once this center swells and you feel grateful, you're in the perfect state to receive. Now there's a reverse field. This field's going this way. Once you feel gratitude, now there's a reverse field, and we see it right in the brain scan, right here. That energy is coming right down into the body, and people say it was like my body was filled with light. Now what's that? Why is that important? Because the second chemical is called vasopressin, anti-diuretic hormone. What does that do? It causes the cells to retain water and to swell. So water is the perfect conduit for electricity, for electromagnetism. It needs a medium. So now the cells swell so they can tolerate a greater frequency. And all of a sudden, inside the cell, if you were to take a cell and you were to blow all the snot off the cell, you would be left with these skeletal structures called microtubules. Many scientists call them the seat of consciousness. They're tiny protein filaments, and they vibrate. So all disease is a lowering of frequency, an incoherent message. And if cells, you start to understand cells emit light and information. And when I'm emitting a frequency, and you're another cell, and you're emitting the same frequency, that frequency, the cell can share information. We're on the same radio station. But when cells are no longer have the light because we're in that survival state, they can't communicate. So now all of a sudden the cell is swollen with water. You're in a state of receiving. That energy is moving right into the body, and those microtubules begin to shimmer in a very coherent, orderly way, because that frequency is a greater degree of oneness and wholeness. It's a greater degree of order. So the cells all of a sudden start vibrating in coherence. The whole body does, and we would describe that as love or wholeness or grace or gratitude. And in that moment, those cells vibrating at the same frequency all of a sudden get a biological upgrade, and they're emitting more light, more coherent information, and all of a sudden the person gets their hearing back, they get their vision back. Because, now this is the great question, you and I, we live by the hormones of stress. When we live by stress, this very stress response causes our senses to be heightened. And we're materialists. We narrow our focus on the cause, the danger, on the threat, on matter. So people become habituated, and all they see is matter in their world. Now, when you start connecting to that field above the speed of light, you have to first become nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, and no time. You have to take all of your attention off your body, every element in your environment and time. That's the moment in your pure consciousness. We teach our students then as an awareness, as a consciousness. You can't experience the quantum with your senses. It's a realm beyond the senses. It's a realm beyond space and time. To begin to connect to that frequency, to pay attention to it, to stay present with it, to experience it, to surrender to it. And as they begin to connect to it, they start feeling less separation, because the stress hormones create separation. They start feeling more oneness, more wholeness. So then, as they move closer and closer to that quantum consciousness, time is created by the separation of 2 points of consciousness. If I'm standing here and I want to walk all the way to the other side of the room, here's one point of consciousness, there's another point of consciousness. I got to drag my body through space, and it takes time. So then when you are, as a consciousness, starting to connect to another greater consciousness, there's less separation between 2 points of consciousness. It means the closer you are to the field, the shorter amount of time it's going to take to appear in three-dimensional reality. And the more whole you feel during the process, the less separation. And the more whole you feel, then that's a greater level of energy. And all of a sudden, people, they have this, we witness it all the time. There's a delicate balance, I think, between intention and surrender. Intention is getting clear on what you want, right? But if we're experiencing separation, then when we overintend, we're trying, right? And so then you're trying to create something from lack. That's when you overintend. Surrender is like trusting in the outcome, right? But if you over-surrender, you're lazy and lethargic, right? You're not doing anything. So it's a razor's edge. So the person who is involved in activating those latent systems, that's their intent. So I now know that the more people understand what they're doing and why, the how gets easier. So we provide the knowledge, the science, the information, so that they can begin to reason what they're about to do. And they repeat it to the person next to them. As they talk about it, they're building a model of understanding. They're preparing themselves neurologically for the experience. So the intention then is to activate those latent systems. And all the things we're doing, we're opening our heart, drawing that energy to the brain, surrendering into the field, activating that gland, they understand what the outcome is going to be. But there are other intentions that are not the primary intention, because they've gotten very clear on who they want to be in their future. Part of the knocking on the door, their future, is that they're whole and they're healthy. But they're not going into the experience for wholeness and health. They're going into the experience to have the mystical moment. You've got to go from selfish to selfless. You've got to go from somebody to nobody to everybody, from someone to no one to everyone, from something to nothing to everything, from somewhere to nowhere to everywhere, from some time to no time to every time. That is the quantum. I thought, the things I've witnessed in our events this year, honestly, I thought I'd never see in my lifetime. I honestly am so shocked at people, blind people getting their vision, people getting their hearing, people stepping out of wheelchairs, getting rid of their crutches, wild. Tumors going away, stroke victims that have been paralyzed, moving their arms and legs. I mean, this is a biblical proportion what we're witnessing, and I have to admit that if I didn't have the measurements, I wouldn't be able to quantify it. Now remember, I'm speaking from my present state of ignorance. All of this could be wrong, but it's the model that I have until we keep developing and being able to demystify the process. And the more we gather the information, I think the better that I can explain it. And when people start to wrap their mind around it, they have less doubt that it's possible. And if someone has the experience and stands up and says, I had a stroke 2 years ago and I haven't been able to move my arms, been paralyzed, and watch this. And they look at the man, and he's in his 70s. He doesn't look like a movie star. He doesn't look like he's very fit. He doesn't look any different than anybody else. And people just kind of go, wow, well, if he can do it, so can I. And now that information is in the field. It's in the morphic field, which means it's more easily tapped into, just like the 4-minute mile. We're piercing a veil. And so the bottom line is, it's not matter that emits a field. It's the field that creates matter. You change the field, you change matter. It's the way it is. And so now, people are beginning to wrap their mind around it. If you're with a group of people, and I'm reminding them, they keep going. Once the breakthrough happens, usually happens the first day, a lot of times, because this group in in Berlin, they broke through the first day. They were ready. By the time we're second day, we're creating. Now, when you start breaking through, you liberate energy. And when you start liberating energy, you have available energy to heal. You have available energy to design a new future. You have available energy for a mystical experience. So once they break through, and now they're in the creative process, who doesn't like to create if they have all the time in the world? I mean, the biggest reason people don't create is they just say there's never enough time. But imagine you have a whole week, you have all the time, and you're creating a movie of your future, and we're teaching people how to walk as it, as to stand as it, as to sit as it, to lay down as it, and we're putting them in different ways to do it, and they're starting to see all these crazy things happen. We go from 6 in the morning till 7 in the evening, or 4 in the morning till 7 in the evening, and people are, they may take a little nap on the break, but they're all in. They're loving it. They're excited. According to our research, I mean, we've seen genetic changes. We've seen immune response changes. We've seen neurotransmitters changes. We've seen telomere changes. We've seen changes in brain coherence, heart coherence. We've seen changes in people's energy, the energy of the room. We've measured all of that. And I started thinking, okay, we teach people how to create brain and heart coherence, and it has biological effects. In 4 days, we were able to produce some of those significant changes. That's supernatural. But then I thought, well, they're doing it in an environment where their eyes are closed, music is soft, There's no threat, there's no danger. We now know that they can create brain and heart coherence in a safe environment. So then I thought, what about when they return back to their lives and they start reacting, they go unconscious, they'll forget the skill. And it's not enough to just do it with your eyes closed. You got to be able to regulate internal states independent of the conditions in your external environment. That's how you master your environment. So I thought, well, let's put them in challenging situations that would cause them to feel a survival emotion like fear or anger, not so much anger, but discomfort, or they don't believe they can go any further, or they hear voices in their head that say quit. And this is where people stop in their life. This is where they go unconscious. So if they're in that potentially emotional situation, and we teach them right in that moment to stop for a moment, and of course the addiction of those chemicals are telling you to not, but to start changing their breathing, to start regulating their internal states, if they can do that, then they would be mastering the moment, and that's a victory. And those moments add up. So as a person pushes themselves past where they normally go, fear turns into freedom. The contraction of insecurity turns into confidence and power, and that's energy being released out of the body. Now, that's when people start to have their breakthroughs, and they're so proud of themselves that they've gone further, that they want more of it. And if they've just overcome that potentially difficult situation, when they return back to their lives, they're going to be faced with difficult situations, and they're going to go, give me a minute. And they're going to ground themselves in coherence again, and they're going to say, this is nothing compared to what I just did. So what's happening now is that people are having instrumental, profound breakthroughs by teaching them how to do that with their eyes open. It's the next level. And I want to keep creating these because people with MS and lupus or spinal cord injuries or handicaps, they start looking and they start going, no, I'm not going to be my disease today. And they move through these challenge activities, and I'm telling you that now they're no longer that same person. I mean, we've seen this. So I now know that when people get into coherent, like theta brainwaves, that theta is the carrier for gamma, and when that system is switched on, wow, people are, doesn't matter how old you are, how sick you are, they're going to have that moment. So now we're working on inducing that state more, and then our scientists are watching certain words that I say. I can say a certain word in the middle of a meditation, a person has a spike of gamma. And all 14 of them that are getting scanned at the same time all have a spike of gamma. So now I know that I can refine it a little bit. So I'm not afraid to fail. I don't really care what people think of me any longer. I've left that behind. I'm more interested in evolving and understanding, and as you said, getting people to go from thinking to doing, because knowledge without experience is philosophy, right? And experience without knowledge is ignorance. And I think that every time we become aware of information, information is knowledge. And as you become more aware of it, awareness is consciousness, and you can't have consciousness without energy. You wake up to a greater level of energy. So then applying it, though, into the experience then creates even a greater emotion, a greater energy, and now you're embodying it. And if you've done it once, let's reproduce it. It's no different. We were talking about golf last night. It's no different than just refining your skill as a golfer. it down, you build it back up. You keep certain things that work really well. You have to refine and change other things, and it's a work in progress. So I just want to create the next experience that's going to allow a person to evolve it even further.
Yeah.
And I hope it's working.
So as Dr. Joe Dispenza explains here, we are much more than body. We are consciousness residing in the body, using body to have experiences. So how can we then choose what experiences we want to have? With consciously focusing on desired outcome as it already happened. Joe Dispenza students do this in meditation, by entering the present moment and then consciously entering the experience they want to have. And they are persistent. They are doing that every day, because they know that when they do it enough times, it will become automatic, and they will start acting as they are that person. And then people will say, "Oh, look at this guy, he had so many luck," or "Wow, what happened to him was a miracle." Joe Dispenza proved all of this, but so far it was too good to be true. Will you try to use this? Did you ever have any experiences with creating consciously? Share your experiences in the comments below, and if you like this video, give your thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and join our community. Stay good and have a great day.